So the market seemed to be going a bit sideways, probably ahead of the Fed meeting that starts September 9th, finishes December 10th, and then we get the announcement about the state of interest rates. Now, the markets may pick up before that, but this is a great time to study other securities, other things that move, and even if you don't trade them directly, to help you better anticipate where the broad market might go, whether that's the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell, or any other benchmark index. And my security of choice is the VIX. So the VIX is a volatility index, and what I'm going to do here is look at price action, market timing, and momentum on the VIX, just like I would on a regular security, but show you the adjustments because I'm human ready and that's what I do. So let's dive in. So the VIX is the CBOE volatility index. Volatility is essentially the movement of the market, but this VIX is specifically measuring the fear. People call it a fear gauge. So when the VIX is rising, that means a lot of fear. That tends to correspond with the benchmarks, S&P, etc., dropping down, okay? So you have to look at this sort of like an upside down. I like to think of Stranger Things. I made it through one season and then I was a little too freaked out by it. But the upside down, right? The opposite world. It looks like ours, but it's different. That's the VIX. So I'm just going to show you a couple key past historical points and then really dial in on what's happening now with some pointers about how to use it. Whether you trade options, which is really what VIX is helpful for directly, or futures or stocks or anything else. Okay, so if you pull up the VIX and in TradeStation it's $VIX.X, it's good to kind of get a gauge of how this thing moves. And I always like to look back a year on a daily chart for a new security I'm observing. So you can see that in August of 2024, we had a major VIX spike. Now this makes sense because these were all things that were happening at times when we had, this was probably the yen carry trade in August of 2024, and then we had a spike around the presidential election and more. But I just want you to see how the VIX rises and can drop dramatically. We had another one with the tariffs, right? The week of the big tariffs announcement, that first week of April in 2025, huge surge in VIX, but then it came down, and it came down as the broad markets, right, stocks traded higher. So let's fast forward to where we are now. Now, something that I observed months ago was that the low on the VIX on August 28th, the daily chart, you could draw a trend line and connect that to the September 12th low, okay? So that's the best way to draw trend lines, is to just take them to the next key turning point, not try to best fit them to something out in the future. And the cool thing is this got confirmed on September 18th. We came back towards it on the 26th, but didn't touch it. Yes, there was a big dramatic move in mid-October, but again, the VIX fell down, and look how it did not get back below that trend line on October 27th. But here we're back at it again. So now what I want to focus in on is what's happening on the VIX in this little segment right here. So pointer number one, when you observe the VIX, and if you plot a standard momentum indicator, like for me, that's the RSI Power Zones, you have to flip it and reverse it in your head, okay? So the VIX in the bull support power zone would be comparable to thinking of the broad market, S&P, Dow, etc., as being in their bear resistance power zone. So the bull support power zone on the VIX is not a quote unquote good place, okay? If it rises from there, it means stocks are gonna be likely to fall. Also, your red candlesticks and green candlesticks, they're going to represent the direction of the VIX, but they're generally gonna be opposite on the broad market. Now, this comes from an exercise my dad used to have me do where when I was really stuck on analyzing a chart, say the daily chart of the ES futures, he'd print it out on paper, flip it around, cut off the axes, okay, and give it to me to review. And suddenly things become more clear. So that's what the VIX can do for you without having to bust out the paper and scissors and everything else. So this trend line, I now have it as a dashed line. Why? Because when you use trend lines and they are not held exactly, they're violated to even an intraday degree, it's good to realize this is sort of a weaker floor. It might still provide quote unquote support. And I'm going to use air quotes when I say support and resistance on the VIX because again, it's not really support. It's not really a floor for the market, right? It's a ceiling for the broad market. But the support on the VIX from the trend line right now is holding. So what does this mean? Unfortunately, if you're a stock trader, it could mean that the VIX is getting ready to make a pop higher. But you can always go intraday and study deeper. For example, 60-minute chart. So my next tip for you is that whatever you look at on the VIX, make it the same time frames you study on your broad market. There's like so many combinations of time frames, right? For me, it's weekly, daily, 60-minute, 3-minute, 15-second. Yours could be 15 minute, 5 minute, 1 minute. Doesn't matter. Whatever yours is, look at that VIX intraday, okay? Don't look at the 60 minute just because I do. I'm looking at the 60 minute because I do my initial analysis on the ES on 60 minute. And now I can see, oh yeah, we are having a bull bear RSI face-off disconnect that started happening this morning on the VIX near the bull support power zone. That's not good. However, just like you can analyze price action on a direct stock or futures or anything else, you can analyze in the VIX. And here there is quote unquote resistance at 1728, meaning if the VIX is really going to kind of take off, I want to see it get above that level. And it looks like it might because it already got above this first resistance, okay? Here at 1635. Oops, I forgot my air quotes. First resistance at 1635. So I think there's a decent chance that at least today things go a little weak. Let's go look at the 60-minute chart. See the 60-minute chart of the ES futures now. It's not going to look the exact same as the VIX chart, but we can see that we had a test of resistance in the opening hour of trading, and now we're starting to back off. Will we continue to weaken? Who knows? But if you are trading midday or late day or evenings, I definitely think the VIX is helpful, especially if you're trading those broad markets, right? That they're covering a bunch of stocks. Therefore, these two things tend to move opposite of each other. It's not a 100% rule, but it's a useful guideline. So if you found value in this video, look at the VIX analytically or tips on how to use it, or even just the awareness that the VIX exists, go ahead and hit that like button, and I'll catch you in the next video.